All right, I'm gonna pop the tasting order in the chat so you can get ready and prepared. Will you bang on, Leo, or are you off? Oh man, just takes time, you know. We'll get in sync one day.
I think Leo's got one right this year. I remember at least.
Way to rub it in.
No, and you were very surprised. You were like nailed it. It was great.
Oh, fun.
We have a challenge for everyone tonight. There is an online debate about a particular cask designation. So we are trying to figure out the bottom of where the truth is and where there's theory, where there's fact and legend. So we'll get to it shortly.
Yep. Should we wait one more minute?
Question for those of cameras on or those in chat without cameras on. How familiar is everyone with Laddie? We know it's a distillery in Islay. Like, do we need to be super basic and go for the beginning today, or are we quite more advanced and we can skip through some of the 101s?
Well, you can see my Laddie shelf up here to my right hand side.
So I always do that. I'm like, over here,
right,
shit, over
right.
there.
So what are you saying? We'll start from the beginning for you then.
Jose, it's not your first panic at the disco. I like it. I like it.
Definitely not.
Cool. To be fair, I kind of figured that when I was putting together my notes and whatnot. But we might get crack-a-lackin' and not delay diving into these whiskies any further. So welcome everyone to tonight's Top Shelf Laddie virtual tasting. As you can see, not in the usual space. I'm currently up in Sydney for our Sipping Spirits show, which I'm very excited about. So I'm not in the same room, but I weirdly have my full setup by accident. I do not, however, have a whiskey glass, so I will be enjoying my whiskeys in a wine glass. Please, no judgment. And considering that a lot of the whiskeys that we will be trying today are ex-wine cask, it feels thematic. So I'll just grab the quick housekeeping. If you have 6 glasses, we recommend it. So you can compare them back, especially with the Valinch bottlings. I think they'd be really cool and interesting to compare back. As usual, please don't drive afterwards. Responsible drinking is always encouraged, especially since I'm pretty sure all of these are boozy. All of our tastings are recorded for those who want to watch them back or for anyone who couldn't join us tonight. If you have any questions or tasting notes, pop them in the chat. We are a small group at the moment. So, if you wanted to ask in person, and it is just Ollie and me taking you through tonight. So maybe if you want to do the raise your hand thing and you can ask them in person, saves your fingers from trying to type too fast. I will say as well, tasting notes are always recommended. If you want to pop them in the chat or raise your hand and give feedback on them. If you have any questions, obviously I'll do my best to answer them. It is just Ollie and I tonight. And like he was saying before, we have a mystery cask situation, so we can hopefully get to the bottom of it together. And of course, the poll will be run at the end of the night so we can see what the pick is. So yeah, cracking into whiskey number 1, the MNE cask. So this is our mystery debate. Before we get into that, I'm going to give you guys spark notes of Bruichladdich. Obviously, 1881 founded. Was briefly a sister distillery to Ben Nevis. Eventually fell into the hands of White and Mackay in the 1970s. And then they closed it in 1995. Modern Bruichladdich begins with Murray McDavid and Jim McEwen in 2001. And I think kind of the most important frame of reference for this tasting that we're doing is that in 2012, they were sold to Remy Cointreau, massive French wine and cognac house. And I think that's really where this era of fully matured wine cask and like full balls to the wall kind of wine, especially table wine kind of style came through with the distillery. So I think, you know, they're obviously responsible for a lot of the bottlings that we are tasting through today, and a lot of the cask acquisitions as well. I don't need to get much more into the distillery than that. I'm sure we're all well and truly across it. But yeah, so the Valinch series, I call it the Valinch series. Sometimes people call it the Cruise series. Valinch is the Scottish name for a spirit thief. We get whiskey out of the barrel. But the series celebrates the over 100 employees that work at Bruichladdich Distillery. They're the largest private employer on Islay, which is insane considering they've got a population of like what, 300, 350 or so. And Crew 69 is dedicated to their bottling hall operator, Paul Beckett. I assume he probably fought tooth and nail for that number in the series. It seems like one of those numbers you either want it or you don't want it. And it is, we're not certain what. So M&E from all accounts from the distillery. We've been trawling through the Friends of Bruichladdich Facebook page. Some people say that it's a code for the warehouse that this barrel came from. But some people are also talking about, because obviously there was the MNC, which was a white wine cask. And so people assuming M&E is also a wine name. Now, I have a theory that it stands for Marsanne wine. But Ollie had a theory that it was just the warehouse, you know, Main Northeast warehouse or something like that. So I'm really curious if any of you guys have seen kind of fights online about this one. Yeah, Ollie, I think, you know, we were trolling through this like all day.
This one has me completely stumped. To the point I'm going to contact our good friends at Bruichladdich, someone at the distillery. It probably won't be Mr. Paul, who's on the bottle. But as Emma mentioned, they say their job title underneath. So this one says bottling hall operator. So he clearly, in his very important position of getting casks into bottles, chose his number, I reckon. But yeah, we have no idea what M&E is. What do you guys think? Is it a red wine cask or a white wine cask finish whiskey is probably question number one. That might be help us.
Yeah, all the other expressions have the wine name spelled out. See, yeah, that's what I kind of thought, because it'll say river salt or it'll say Bordeaux or something like that. But then at the same time, like the SC that we'll try later, and then the MNC for, I think it was Chateau Maasneuf wine. So yeah, it would kind of be really interesting to see. Everywhere just says the cask type is MNE. Curious to see what you guys are tasting. Leo reckons it tastes like red wine. I personally get more white wine notes off of it. Like you know when you get a really overripe pear, like one of those fancy pears, and it's just kind of mushy, almost like, this is gonna sound terrible, baby food. You get the mushy pear baby food, but that the sweetness. Yeah. Michael, you think it's a white wine cask? Ooh.
Even whiskey base, like it has one vote, 89 points. That's useless information. Added 16th of October. So that's it. There's very little information on it apart from its ABV, and these are bottlings, yeah, that showcase each of the employees on the fronts. it's a nice sort of gold sort of trimming, and it says distillery exclusive only, so not even online. You basically have to know someone at the distillery or go visit it yourself to grow these first 3 whiskies, which are pretty cool.
Yeah.
500 mils, annoyingly. I will say that it would have been good to have 700.
With more whiskey is always preferable option between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nick, you think it's more of white wine? Yeah, I do, and show of hands or things or whatnot. Who's had a Marsanne wine before? No? Okay, cool. All right. Leo, you've had a Marsanne before?
Is it very sweet or dry?
Because and yes, John, you've had one as well.
Marsann's that I've had to dry white, Goulburn Valley up near Shepparton. I can't remember the name of the winery, but they are one of the very prominent wineries up there. Did a Marsanne a few years ago. It was flinty dry, So yeah, as far as Marsanne goes, it'd be a dry white wine, to my knowledge.
It depends on the year of the bottling, makes a huge difference, and also how mature it is. The Marsanne is one of the wines that changes quite a bit with time. It mellows out and gets sweeter with time.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought. There's a winery that has a couple of vineyards that they work with across New South Wales, South Australia, and Victoria. And I've completely blanked on the name of the winery now, which is embarrassing. But yeah, they did a more skinsy natural style Marsanne, and like it had so much like juiciness to it. It was almost like drinking a Riesling, but with a lot more texture and body. So yeah, for me, Marsann's always been like a kind of sweeter, but had this funkiness to it, like lanolin. I remember I had a Marsanne and it had lanolin kind of vibes, which I really liked. James, you get a lot of sweetness on the nose, slightly dirty, earthy note. Nice. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Are we enjoying it at the very least? This mystery mystery kind of dram. Yeah, no. Yeah. It's I think it'll be the one mystery of the night. Everything else is relatively straightforward after much research.
I take back my earlier comment, Emma, about the 500 mils. They have all these special distillery editions. They try and aim for at least 400 bottles just to get as much liquid shared with the community as possible. So that's the actual decision behind it. So yeah, I don't see there's many below 400 bottles. Yeah, this one's got 415, the next one's 400, and then 403. So
you're talking smack for no reason. No. Yeah, no, I mean, look, that's the thing, right? Especially, I imagine, obviously, like the staff members would probably get an allocation of these bottles. So, you want to make as many of them as possible and make them last so that they can have those bottles, but then the broader public can still get access to them as well. I'm going to be thinking about this M&E Marsanne, not Marsanne thing for like the rest of the year, I think. It's going to absolutely confound me. Chateau Tablet. Okay, cool. Yeah, Raoul, it tastes like a white wine finish to you as well. Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, shall we crack into whiskey number 2?
Before we jump in, I have a stock update. So, sorry, I just sent Chris to the warehouse to actually go count this. So he's told me this is all we have.
Yeah, Raoul, we found the same information online. People like, is it what was it? Manos, or someone thought it was like a Spanish wine. Some people think it's a French red wine. I've heard a lot of people say it's similar to river salts, and it's like no one has checked for certain. But yes, Ollie, over to you about the bottles that we have.
Yeah, so we'll do 10% off like usual. So if there's any of them, we have 2 bottles, 1 bottle, 1 bottle. The rest of the stock has either already been sold or we're using very little. We could bring over. Well, one of our famous whiskey meals brought us some stuff directly from the distillery. So if there's anything here tonight, just drop me an email. I will hold off for a day or two before I will actively post about it in an email or Facebook with our other channels. So yeah, that's it from me on the sell.
Yeah, so first dibs and all that. But yeah, so whiskey number 2, a lot less confusing. Another Valinch staff member bottling. Crew number 65 is honoring their global brand ambassador, well, one of their global brand ambassadors, Katie Smith. This has been matured for the entire 11 years in a, I'm going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation of this, in a Pessac Leognan wine cask. Pessac is Pessac Leognan is a wine growing area and appellation of origin in the northern part of Bordeaux in France. So obviously appellation of origin, and then later on we'll talk about denomination of origin, pretty much the same thing, just in Spanish and in French. But yeah, so the region itself is predominantly known for producing red styles of wine. The main grape style type that they use is Cabernet Sauvignon, but they use a lot of Merlot grapes as well, and occasionally Cab Franc. And they do a couple of white wine bottlings in the region using Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon grapes. I think we can feel pretty confident this is probably a red wine style of whiskey, but it smells very sweet. That smells amazing. Oh my gosh. Sorry, got so distracted. But yeah, so it is statistically likely to be red wine, but given the smell, this is another one that could just be a white wine style hiding very, very well as a non-white wine style. So it's interesting to see. But yeah, so obviously with Bruichladdich ownership from Remy Cointreau, obviously Cointreau being the orange liqueur, but Remy being Remy Martin. They have a lot of deep connections with chateaus all across France. And, you know, ever since their ownership, we've really seen more specific, nuanced, like high-end styles you'll never bloody, you know, get the chance to try unless you go there. Types of wine cask, which has been really, really cool. And I think they were probably one of the first to like really emphasize wine cask, especially with peated whiskey.
This is tasty.
Chateau La Mission Haute-Briand.
57.8, 11-year-old. I think it's bang on the money.
Okay, so the one you just shared, John, is a red wine from the style. Are you very big into wine, John?
I love wine.
You love wine? Sweet. I'm coming round. I really like pet nat wines, and people say I'm trash for that. So
I hate white wine, love red wine.
Fair enough.
There's
This
also
is-
cherries on the nose.
I just get like toffee candy, like really clean toffee. I don't know. All right, I will give you the cherries, but it's a type of cherry they grow in America in Washington State, that grow at the base of Mount St. Helen, and they're like a much brighter style of cherry. It reminds me a lot of that. Mm. What do we think of this one? We loving it more, loving it less?
Super complex nose. Like you need time to kind of get to know it.
Yeah. I feel like I could just sit and smell this for like 2 hours. It's like my mom will come back, find me just sitting there smelling a whiskey. What's wrong with her? Okay, Michael, okay, maybe I am being swayed to it potentially being red wine. I'm just surprised at how not like deep it is in terms of like it's got this clean quality. It definitely does have that Black Forest cake and cream kind of thing, but it's not like heavy on the taste, which is surprising for 11 years full maturation.
I have the info. I've tracked down the cask.
Mm.
Drum roll. This is an 11-year-old, 57.8% matured in an ex red wine barrique.
Mm. So it is a red wine. It's just so clean. Oh my gosh. Mm. I'm going to probably safely assume that John's the only one who's had a Pessac wine in the room right now. Yeah. I feel like, Ollie, maybe when we do our next like Bruichladdich single cask, especially if we get a lot of wine casks, we should do a whiskey and like a mini wine pairing as well. I think that's
Oh,
kind
we've been threatening it for a while. It will most likely have to delay till next year. But yeah, we're going to do like a sherry tasting, whether it's purely a sherry tasting or sherry and whiskey, like you just said. We need to unpack. There's so much that goes into making barley. You can talk about all the different grains and barleys, and whether it's Voyager malt, choc malt, like all that fun stuff, and other players in the market like Archie Rose will go to the nth degree. But yeah, I think no one's actually explored all those different kinds of cool sherry casks, and I think that would be quite an interesting tasting. But maybe it's something you and I want to do, Emma. So hopefully everyone in the group's interested too at some point.
yeah. Bobby can't afford wine on top of whiskey. That is legitimately fair. I will say I've been at a couple wineries in person recently. It's just like, oh, it's so cheap from the winery, but then you get outside of that and it's like, crap. It's so expensive. But yeah, no. Slightly tannic, not overpowering. Michael, yeah, it must be the spirit coming through that like that cleanness.
It has a
finish.
bit of white pepper you get on the front of your palate, on your tongue. It just like tingles there for a moment and dissipates. It disappears very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also like how you said that we've been threatening to do one of those things, threatening with a good time, I would like this, please, even if it's just us sitting in a room drinking a bottle of whiskey and a bottle of sherry.
Oh, there was like 40 bottles of Oloroso sitting in the warehouse yesterday. I saw it for the first time. It's not on any manifest. Like I don't know what it's there for. It's assuming a corporate tasting or something, but I might pinch a bottle for research.
Yeah. No, I feel like I would have seen that. Like I would have sniffed it out in the warehouse. But yeah, no, definitely. And I will say as well, for anyone based in Victoria, I highly recommend going up to Rutherglen. They've probably got some of the best fortified wines. I will say there's some really great wines around Canberra as well, especially sherry style, fortified wine style wines. But yeah. Alrighty. The third and final Valinch Carew on the list for the Whiskey Rutherglen. Yeah. I'll take you up to Rutherglen, Michael. I need a companion in the car. We'll just have a mini holiday. But yeah, so whiskey number 3. This is the final one of the 3 Valinch Crew series that we have tonight. This is for another global brand ambassador, Abby Clefane. I assume Clefane. She used to be the UK ambassador for Bruichladdich, but considering the demand, it made sense that they would need more than one global brand ambassador. She's been with the company for over 8 years now. So they celebrated her with this bottling. This whiskey is fully matured in a Ribera del Duero European oak wine cask. So Ribera del Duero, these bloody names. You think Scottish Gaelic is hard, and then you're like, fancy French and Spanish wines. And I've sent John into a coughing fit of laughter, I'm sure. But yeah, Ribera del Duero is a Spanish denomination of origin, so DOP, same as AOP or AOC, but just the Spanish and phraseology for it. So the region is this really tiny little segment in the north of Spain, north of Madrid, in the surrounding area that includes Leon and Castile. And it's along the northern plateau, so like mountainous region. In Spain, you have what are called autonomias, which are like states. So Ribera del Duero is a state, essentially. Like Victoria, more like ACT in terms of size. But yeah, so the name itself means riverbanks of the Duero, and it's one of the oldest winemaking regions in Spain. The styles that they make there are mostly Tempranillo grape based, and there's nearly 300 wineries in this tiny little region that are producing that style of wine. So this is definitely going to be a lot more of your classic, like rich kind of red winey cask, potentially. I was wrong about the last one though, so
Can we just start ABV warning? It's a monster at 64.3.
Yeah.
For a 12-year-old whiskey as well.
It is nothing to sniff too hard at. Ooh.
I'll show you what these bottles are like at the distillery very, very quickly. I finally found one that I was looking for. So that's this one here. You go in with your hand fill basically. But yeah, they do their Rockandale as well, and yeah, each person. That's the other one we just have as well. So that's how it looks like. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's super cool how they're like, I mean, obviously, like we were saying, one of the biggest private private company employers on the island, and the fact that they were like, yeah, we're gonna name a cask out after every single one of our staff. I'm sure when they started it, they had the other distilleries going, hey, where's my cask? But yeah, Leo reckons it tastes more like a fortified cask. Or like it, yeah. I think it kind of reminds me of when you get whiskeys that are finished in a Duero, like the Portuguese Duero wine casks, because they're table wines, but it's the same like Tinto grapes that are used to make port. So your brain is like, it's almost port, but it's not port. And Tempranillo is used in a lot of fortified wines as well, I believe. Especially here in Australia, I think there's quite a lot of fortified wines using like Tempranillo grapes because Tinto grapes don't grow super well here. But yeah. So this is definitely a table style red wine. From what I was researching and reading, there aren't really that many fortified styles produced in the region. It is more on the table wine side, but I talk about whiskey for a living, not a wine, so is always a little bit harder to find the information that I need.
Definitely the hottest of the three we've just had. I think that ABV is contributing. With a bit of water, a little bit more sweetness comes through. It's definitely European oak, not French oak.
It's interesting as well that like the previous two were 13 years, 11 years, and this is 12 years. So they're all that similar kind of age profile. But you've got what, 53%, 57-ish%. And then you got this one, which was like refused to budge and actually went up in alcohol at 64.3. Is it 3? I'm blind. 64.3%. So, because I believe Bruichladdich still fills at the classic 63.5% that most distilleries do. Yeah, I don't think they would have filled at a higher ABV. It wouldn't make sense to vary just for one cask unless they believed that the cask was going to influence it in some type of way, or they needed to try and get more flavor out of it. I know in Australia there are a few distilleries that have lower fill strength. So I believe Starwood is 55% fill strength, and it allows them to not draw too much flavor or like too much tannin, as it were. But you'd think upping the ABV of the fill strength would draw more tannins out than less. So really interesting. James gives me similarities to a few Aussie whiskies I've had, reminds me of Muscat. Yeah, I can kind of get that. Those like really dry, not super sweet style muskets where it's like, you know that it's a fortified, but like you're not diabetic after you have it. I prefer the ones where I feel like I've got diabetes afterwards. Bobby personally gets a bit of pencil shavings, like one of the heavy red wines, maybe it's tannin. Yeah, no, I can see that. Like it's that oakiness. It's like, you know, when you're chewing on a lead pen, not lead anymore, graphite. When you're chewing on like graphite pencils and you're just eating into the wood layers. It's yeah, super interesting. Nick, you're loving it. That's awesome. Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely does better with water, Ollie. But I think
just love how versatile Bruichladdich spirit is. It always has been and it always will. It just works in so many different casks.
yeah, 100%. I think that like, yeah, either end of the spectrum from white wine to red wine, it's still shines through, which is great. Yeah.
Whiskey 4.
Whiskey number 4. Now this one also threw us for quite a loop. So there is a type of wine in France called Rhinns wine. It's also called Juration de Naturel, something like that. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh yeah, cool, all right, you know, it's just in a Rhinns cask. That makes sense, right? And then Ollie and I chatted about it. We're like, no, there's, what is it? The Isle of Rhinns in Scotland. And it's spelt the exact same way. So this is full maturation bourbon hogshead. But the Rhinns cask implies, so Rhinns is a super, super rare style of Bruichladdich that is lightly peated to 30 ppm, so just below Port Charlotte. They really don't make a lot of it, like ever. They very rarely release it either, which is kind of why this one came about unusually. So I'm pretty sure most of you are probably members of the Friends of Bruichladdich Facebook group. Yeah, a couple, yeah. So yeah, Friends of Bruichladdich, your classic fan page about whiskey. And that's how it started out. founded by best mates John McDougall and Derek Mather, who absolutely love the distillery. The group has now over like 11,000 members, and worked multiple times with the distillery to produce single cask bottlings for their members. So they work with Whisky Broker, which is a company that is a whiskey broker, shockingly. So they use them to help acquire this cask. So fully matured in bourbon hogsheads for 10 years. These ones, I believe, are also 500 mils, Ollie.
Yeah, all of them are.
Yeah, just because obviously in a group of 11,000 people, stuff goes pretty quick if you've only got one cask. So they've done a couple of different single cask bottlings with really fun labels on the front of them. But yeah, so I think this is one of their earlier ones that they bottled, Ollie.
Number, it says 36 on the label. I think it's I don't know. I'll need to double check it. Third or fourth of the Friends of Bruichladdich recent ones, maybe. I don't know. Well, need to double check.
Yeah.
So what happened? Mark Rainier and Jim McEwen had an awesome single cask program. Like they were, when Scotch wasn't popular, similar to Springbank, they were just selling these casks or giving away to friends and family. If you're a tradie, you did some work, fix the drain pipe, you got a cask of whiskey. Like there are so many Laddie casks out there in private collectors. So I believe, these two Friends of Bruichladdich are private casks. One, if you guys joined us for the Dram full tasting, we did February or March earlier this year. The guys came on. Basically, Dramfor is an independent bottler in Scotland. They got a phone call because he was a private Laddie collector from Jim McEwen going, do you want my casks when I retire? And it's something like 300 casks that they ended up raising money and buying. So including the largest collection of Lockendale. So you've got Bruichladdich, Rhinns, Port Charlotte, Lockendale, and Octomore in terms of the 5 new makes that Mark and Jim were playing around with. Like Lockendale is a blend of Port Charlotte and Octomore. They just blended it together as new make spirit, then chucked it in a barrel. Rhinns, I don't know much about it. There's very little about it. They just pop up every now and then. So these are the rarest types of Bruichladdich spirit out there, and they're just delicious. And if you find them, I tend to just jump on them because they're that fun.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I'm curious, Leo, tropical. Oh shit, sorry. Tropical fruits, pineapple, charred pineapple, toasted coconut. Bobby, you're getting bacon and leather. That is, I kind of see both. It's so like kind of fibrous, but like in a fruity kind of way. Yeah.
Did you say 30 ppm for this one, Emma?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Because Port Charlotte's 40, 40-ish.
Yeah. And I think even the standard Bruichladdich, they say it's unpeated, but it's unpeated in a similar way that 2 to 5 ppm. I think like most distilleries, a lot of distilleries have like a tiny bit of peat to give it a salinity or a savoriness and stop it from being just like super unpeated, I suppose. But yeah, so I mean, look, Rhinns might even be like a blend of either Port Charlotte and regular Bruichladdich or regular Bruichladdich and Octomore, like who knows. So
I don't think they created a separate peated batch of barley, so I must be blending it.
It might also be a situation of, if say the malting house has a batch of like 30 ppm malt or something like that, rather than the standard, it might be like, hey, we'll take a batch of that because you've already got it. We'll make a run of Rhinns or whatever. So yeah, super interesting. Michael, this is damn good. Yeah, it is damn good. It's hard to describe how much it does and doesn't taste like Bruichladdich. Like if you gave this to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's just a, easygoing Lacheg. But it's not. Yeah, no, it's weird.
Raoul, you might be right. Isla
Yeah.
Barley.
Might also be Isla Barley. But that's but they've got Port Charlotte Isla Barleys as well. So it might be like the grain component and the peat component and a whole bunch. Barley harvested on the Rhinns of Isla. Oh, okay. Yeah, that might be it.
If Serge says it, then it's gospel, generally.
But yeah.
Well, like if it's Rockside Farm, that makes sense. It would be local. 10-year-old, what is it, 60.5?
Drinks so
0.7,
easy.
0.7, yeah. I don't want to add water to it. I'm enjoying it as is.
I'm calling the mix of tropical and smoky peaty notes is so well integrated. Absolutely. This is the kind of whiskey you got to keep away from Dr. Rachel Barry. She's so lovely, but she's like, Glenn Glasser makes a peated tropical coastal whiskey. No one else does that. And I'm like, sure, okay. But yeah, she's super wonderful. But yeah, this is definitely got those like Bamore-ish, what you'd expect from a Bamore, kind of the same age, same specs, but yeah, and it might most likely the barley has a lot of influence on that.
You were so right, Bobby. I had a bit of left residue after I necked it, and then added some water, and the nose is just super tropical now.
Yum. I think this is another one I could just sit and smell it all day and just be absolutely contented. It's amazing. It's also one we don't have any of, right?
That was our very last bottle
that we opened for this tasting.
Yep.
I'll cry myself to sleep tonight.
I do see it on the Scottish whiskey auctions appear every now and then. So yeah, I think you just have to fight.
Yeah, Bobby, heartbroken, John. You might have to keep a close eye out for a bottle of that.
Look, we regularly catch up with our other. We do like barrel and we send Aussie whiskey to Scotland and USA, so they have a hit list of things to always send us. Anything interesting, Bruichladdich, like Springbank, you know, all the cool and wonderful Japanese, less Macallans these days. But yeah, anything that's interesting, Bruichladdich. This is why this got said, hey, do you want it? So we have to take all of them, and we're like. I looked at the list and I said, hell yeah, there's nothing bad in this list. So
yeah. Yeah, no. Good thing they don't send those lists to me because I'd be just like, yep, one of everything. Don't worry about sending it to the warehouse, just send it to my house. All right. Well, shall we we've dipped our toes into the peaty waters. I shall auto reply, just send it. I think that's a great idea, Nick. Whiskey number 5, Port Charlotte SC01, Distillery exclusive, single cask. So this is Distillery exclusive, but it's got that that classic naming function. Yeah, Ollie's got the bottle. The classic naming function, SC, stands for Sauternes cask. I remember chatting to the guys from Bruichladdich and they're like, no, we like to keep it a secret what it actually is. That's why we use the code. And I'm like, yeah, but less than a week later, you tell everyone. So like, what's the point? Just write it on the bottle. We're all going to find out eventually anyway. So as we were saying before, Port Charlotte, obviously 40 ppm, very standard for Isla, very standard for heavily peated whiskies. It's funny on their website, they're like, you know, Port Charlotte is our heavily peated expression. And I'm like, yeah, but then you've got Octomore. So you can't say it's your heavily peated. It's your mid-range. Like, you know, it's not the crazy balls to the wall one. But yeah, so this specific one, this cask number 4045, is a second fill Sauternes. So it was laid down in 2010 and bottled this year. So they have done sauternes before, predominantly, I believe, with the Octomore range. There was a travel retail exclusive that was half sauternes, half hogshead maturation. So finished in sauternes. But this is I think this is the second Ollie. I recall we had another SC, but a regular bottling.
Yes, and I don't remember if it was in the tasting, but I do have a dram full, a Jim McEwen Octomore. That's a sauternes, and I also have a normal dram full Port Charlotte sauternes. So they've obviously, are all around that 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old mark. So they've obviously bought a parcel of sauterne casks, and just went crazy filling them and then sent them in all wild directions. And this is one that has somehow retained at the distillery.
Yeah, Leo, I completely agree. Like, especially after the last one, you can really not tell too much of the smoke on the nose. It's not very open on the nose at all. It just kind of smells like an empty cardboard box, like just air that's a tiny bit stale. But yeah, like the funky weird cheese, yeah. Maybe a little bit of that, like a hard wash rind kind of thing, but only subtly. Yeah.
I've had this discussion, debate, argument, and you can call it what you'd like, with several Isla distilleries, including Jim, a good robust conversation with him. He is of the belief that depending who is writing the label on the day, and what spreadsheet they look at, the ppm is measured before or sometimes after the distillation, and it really annoys him. It annoys Peter Bignell from Belgrove as well. He's like, all ppm should be measured before or after, like pick a universal standard, don't keep mixing it. So even though this is technically more smokier than the last dram, but definitely on palate it is not. It is significantly lighter on smoke.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why, like, when you look at Ardmore, they say, they peak to between 5 and 12 ppm. And you're like, this is super smoky. Like, a lot of their stuff is super smoky. And they're probably calculating it after it's been through. So, like, a 40 ppm might end up as a 12 ppm once it's been through distillation. And then obviously maturation takes a lot out of it as well. Ollie, does it say how old this one is on the bottle?
It is
13 years.
no 12.
12?
September 28th for September, bottle date on the back here.
Yeah.
And distilled on the 18th of 11, which makes it 12 years old.
2011, not 2010. That makes sense. Yes. But yeah, so it's, yeah, and I mean, like, barely a year difference, 2 years difference. And the smoke's just completely evaporated. Almost, it feels like, in comparison. We should have swapped them around, Ollie. Damn it, we were so concerned about the Rhinns being peated, and we're like, is that going to work after the Valinch bottlings? And we're like, yeah, we should move it after the Valinch. We should have checked the bloody Port Charlotte as well at the same time. Yeah.
Well, smokiness aside, just judging this whiskey on its own, this is a bloody good dram.
Yeah.
If it feels first fill, I don't think it would work as well.
Bobby gives it a thumbs up. I will, just a question. I will say, of the like 3 core brands, Bruichladdich, Port Charlotte, or Octomore, what's kind of everyone's go-to out of that range? Is it Bruichladdich, Port Charlotte, or Octomore? Jose's Octomore. Michael splitting the difference. Be a man, Michael. Pick one. Yeah, no, I feel like whole Cask exploration series is epic. The Rhinns is doing it for you. Leo's found his little diamond in the rough.
When it comes to OB bottlings, Octomore for me. When it comes to IB, I actually prefer both. Like, there are some amazing Octomore IBs, but the Port Charlotte and the Laddie IBs are like insanely good when you find a good one. Like you can't find. I don't know why there's such a difference between normal Bruichladdich and IB Bruichladdich, but it's just chalk and cheese.
Yeah. Michael's Lockendall, Laddie, then Port Charlotte seems to be, and then Port Charlotte. Tastes good, but is not supported by aroma, which lets down for experience. Yeah, I agree with that particular one on this whiskey. Yeah, the nose is like just not there, and it's like I want the experience. I will say personally, IB Port Charlottes are my jam all over every day. You get more of that funky cheesy thing, or it either goes like real full on bacon balls and cheese puffs, especially if you get a fortified wine cask. But yeah, I tend to go more towards Port Charlotte, and I actually find women enjoy Port Charlotte whiskey more. I don't know why. I think it's those cheesy notes. We're a big fan of them in our brains. Yes, Ollie is sharing. I want a dram of that. You need to bring that to me on the weekend because I'm very excited about the
This
new
is
whiskey
a
sponge.
56.5% Isla Sponge Part 4. It is a 20-year-old Port Charlotte in a refill hogshead. Angus, it only just got cleared customs today, so or yesterday, whenever we got that done. But yeah, Angus compares it. It's a private cask, and he doesn't know why, but there's so many references. Bruichladdich at the time was doing contract distilling for Bowmore. So he's like it's throwing him off, and Surge has also tried it. Obviously they've got the reviewing there, and just purely they're saying it reminds them a little bit of some older 20-year-old Bowmores. It's got that really funky, not soapy funk, but just super funky old school Bruichladdich to it. So it's a fun dram. It's pricey, but it is worth it. And there's a few other 20-year-old Bruichladdich in the market or coming out in the next few weeks across Australia. This one is cheaper than the others. So we've priced it as competitively, as fairly as we can. Sorry to derail from our normal tasting.
No, we're talking about like Port Charlotte and sponge. I love it. And I will say, thank God customs came in, gave us the rubber stamp of approval super soon, so we can finally send out Leo your the Telebardines on the way. Is it Telebardine? Yeah, it's super dark. I looked at it and I was like, now I want a bottle.
It's like Ribena color. It's like pitch black.
Yeah.
It's in the coolest, like darkest sherry. Yeah, we don't have enough. You're lucky to get a bottle.
Yeah. Did we send some to the Elysian already? I think.
I don't know.
I don't know because Rouse already had that Abbey at a sponge at the Abbey Festival this weekend. So nice. I'm excited to try it. Michael, the SCO one's growing on you. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, interesting. I think it's still classically Port Charlotte, but I agree with John, the nose not being there. I think it was John saying the nose not being there is just a bit of a bummer. Either you're listening for you on Saturday night. I hope they have the Telebardine. I'll check for you, Leo. I'll send you a message. We'll see how it goes. Oh, good. All right. The final whiskey. Obviously, we had to leave the Octomore for last, because that just otherwise we would have ruined our entire palates without it. But yeah, so this is another Friends of Bruichladdich bottling. I believe. So the Rhinns bottle that Ollie was showing before is part of the Om Nom 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 Nom. There is an Om Nom 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 Octomore, but this is not it. It's the Blues Brothers label one, which is really fun. I personally prefer the Simpsons labels that they do for some of the Friends of Bruichladdich bottlings. But this is full-term maturation in a Syrah, Shiraz, red wine cask. I think that's quite unusual. I mean, it's 11 years old, so it's got decent age on it. It's really unusual to see Octomores in full maturation wine cask outside of independent bottlings. With a lot of their core range, they do tend to divvy it up into finishes rather than full maturations. I think there's been a couple in the core range, official range, but not that many. And again, this was acquired by a whiskey broker for the group, because you got to get your whiskey legally. But yeah, so Ollie, does it say the ppm on this one? Because obviously Octomore does change ppm between bottling to bottling, batch to batch. I think their highest one was 301 ppm.
Give me 30 seconds. I will check the group because I remember them talking about it.
Oh yes, might have been 307 was the highest, Michael. Is that 8.3, I believe? Yeah, that was so good. I regret not getting a bottle of that. But then again, there was like none to get by the time I tried it. It went super quick. Oh, it smells very floral. Is anyone else getting like, not roses, but like lovely like flowers? Really got that like pollen spores and floral aromatics. I think that's what I love most about Octomore is that like it's so crazily peated, but then it's so not what you expect when you come around to drink it. Like so many people who've tried Octomore, who I've introduced to it, like they think it's going to be unbearable, but it's so not. It's all about the way that it integrates. Michael, I'll give you my tasting note for the 8.3. It tastes like Wagyu Brasola. It's super meaty. I'm real sorry. But now you know though. Tea tree is a good call. There's this like, if you ever go to those waterfalls in like in like the Grampians in Victoria and stuff like that, you get tea trees growing on the rock ledges a lot of the time, and the water will rush over the leaves and then into the pool. So there's just this like shimmering oil layer on the pool, and it just smells incredible. Did a mead, it smells very similar. Mead is hard. Good job on making a mead. There's some hard stuff to produce.
So Emma, whilst there is no disclosed ppm on this one, they do say that there's two styles of labels for it. It's the same whiskey. About 70% of them was their Octo Nom 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 label. And then, yeah, about 30% of what they produce, they put the blues one just to, and they randomly you'd buy it for £150 at the time when they released it. And yeah, you got one or the other just for a bit of fun. So only the lucky few will get a label with our handsome faces on it. So
that's probably how they avoid copyright. Like, well, they weren't all like that. And we don't remember which ones we sent to who. It was a lucky dip. So you'll never be able to find it and chase us down for it. That's probably it. Because I imagine otherwise Matt Groening probably would have hunted them down for the Simpsons labels as well. John, you and I have to be friends if you make a lot of mead. That's awesome.
Disney will actively go after anyone producing whiskey in the States using any of their copyright material, including just the words. So you can't, for example, put the word Mickey Mouse on a whiskey label because, yeah, they'll cease and desist you and they will force you to go back and relabel it all.
Yeah. And considering Disney ran rings around the Florida legislature with their lawyers, they're not people to mess with. But they will come out after you no matter what it is. I think Hop Nation in Victoria got a cease and desist letter about their Jedi juice now that Disney owns Star Wars. So now it's just called J Juice. And they left the tattooed Princess Leia-ish looking person on the front. I think they've made some tweaks, but yeah, Disney will hunt you down and your children and your children's children. Johnny got about 50 liters, won a few silver medals. Macadamia mead. Oh,
Where are you
That's
based, John?
yeah. Where are you based? Where's your warehouse? Can I break in?
I'm in Victoria, so I used to do a lot of brewing of beer, and used to win a lot of competitions, but just got out of it due to the politics, and in the process, I ended up being a beekeeper. So I had 27 hives or something. So if you're a brewer, bees, honey, mead. So I've done all sorts of stuff: macadamia, tea tree. There's about 6, 7 different types of meads. Entered in the Eltham wine shows, got silvers and bronzes, all sorts of stuff.
That's amazing. That's super cool.
I opened the collabs.
Yeah.
Excellent. Eltham, you say?
Oh no, I'm far from there.
Well, so there's a beekeeper that I know in Victoria in Skye because he's come to a few of our whiskey shows.
I'm not too far from there.
Oh, you're not too. Do you know Ash?
No, I don't.
Okay, cool. You should be friends with Ash because he's. Anyway, totally derailed this conversation with mead, but I will definitely be popping up to visit at some point. But that is one thing I will say though is mead casks are not as common as I would expect, considering mead is a heritage spirit in like the UK and across the world. It has like a long history in places like Egypt and Mexico because it was one of the earliest forms of fermentation that you could do. Wild tangent, in ancient Egypt, they used to have slave girls who would wash honey through their mouths because the enzymes in your saliva break down honey into the alcoholic components, which sounds like the most revolting thing ever. But needs must back then. So, but yes, let's start talking about the Octomore. But yeah, so the Octomore is bloody amazing. I feel like I've sipped it and I haven't tasted anything specific, but I just know it tastes like happy. Just tastes good. It's that, I don't know, distinctly peaty, but alcohol cures all else. Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like by the time you're done, it is alcoholic, so it's like it's fine, but it's still gross.
I'm getting the red frogs lollies, but like the stickiness when you start chewing it in your mouth, and like kind of like
That gelatin kind of thing. Tastes like the happiest place on earth. I do love that. Yep. See, Disneyland's the happiest place on earth, but now there's like what, 5 of them all around the world? So,
plus Disney Sea, Disney World. We can go on, but yeah.
yeah. I would say Disney World's not too bad. I grew up with OG Disney in Anaheim, so
I'm gonna
just
have to get rid of all our mentions of Disney because when we upload this to YouTube later, they'll probably send YouTube a cease and desist.
Oh no. I'm gonna get copyright striked on YouTube.
There'll be just sections of this tasting that are just black and it's like
hey, it's fair use. We're having a conversation about it. Yep. But yeah, so I agree with James as well. It's very Moorish. It's got that like when you get those like jus that you have on a steak, like a red wine jus, but not quite. And what are those? Like black currant? Not Are they black currants or like cranberries? It's got a bit of that cranberry kind of vibe to it. Hickory smoked steak sauce. Yes.
covered in gravlax or some sort of like gravy.
Mm.
But then I'm getting it's something tropical. It's like not coconut, it's not papayas, it's not citrus zest either. I can't work out what it is. There's something there. No, I don't know. It's good.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's good.
I will say it leaves this kind of like papery kind of finish in my mouth though. So you just kind of want to keep sipping because it's quite drying on the back. But yeah. That's amazing. Well, Ollie, have we got a poll ready for tonight?
Sure. Let me hit poll. Launch.
Alrighty.
Whilst you're all voting, this has 69 votes, the most out of all the whiskies we've tasted tonight on Whiskey Base, with a score of 90.24. So that's pretty massive for a whiskey. That's only been around. Oh no, it came out on 2020, so it's been around for a few years now. Yeah, a lot of dark berries. People commenting, they're saying it's complemented the red wine. Cherry smoke, blackberries, spices, cumin, tapioca. Don't know if I agree with that one. Leathery notes, chocolate, coffee. All right, people are just saying whatever they want to say in some of these comments. So.
I will say I love Whiskey Base and Serge Valentine reviews, which is Whiskey Fun as well. They're awesome. But for me, I'm like half the time when I'm reading the tasting notes on the back of something, I'm like, you're just making this up. You just, this is like you're just throwing the whole book at it to try and explain it. So I always go with what I personally taste, but as Leo knows, it's a long process, and I reckon, Leo, your tasting notes and your profile has gotten so good because we've been doing this for what, 2 years now? Coming to our virtual tastings with me.
Yes, 3 now.
Yeah, going on 3. Oh gosh.
If you have any left of the first 3 drams, try them after the Octomore, and they instantly all become super sweet. It's really weird.
Oh my god, even the M&E smells like lime cordial. Just the cordial, not mixed with water. But yeah, sweet viscous. Wagyu, nice. Smoother than you'd expect for 60% and more integrated than most Octomores. But yeah, no, amazing. All right. Well, I think we are sharing the results. Yes, absolutely. I want to say that I'm surprised by the Rhinns, but I'm also not surprised by the Rhinns coming first. No whiskey tasting like a color tonight. Hey. The Octomore smelled like red flowers. So, that's close enough.
If we took both the friends of bottlings out, where would your votes change? A lot, drastically, a little bit? I think that Pessac was interesting.
Yeah. I think what this result tells us is that we need to buy more friends of Bruichladdich bottling. Just get as many as we can.
I like the earlier idea, just auto responder, just sign me up each time. Octo Farm is the other one that comes out in that group every now and then. It's so good.
Yeah.
Usually a bit more expensive, but it is worth it.
Yep. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Obviously, it's just Ollie and myself tonight, and hopefully next time we can get maybe one of the friends of Bruichladdich guys on, or one of the Bruichladdich people on as well. That would be wonderful. Maybe even someone who's on one of the Valinch bottlings. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to us chat, for sharing these drams with us, for sharing the love of Bruichladdich with us. Yeah, and we'll see you at the next tasting. However, I don't know about you, Ollie. If you guys wanted to chat a little bit more about Bruichladdich and Octomore and other stuff. If you wanted to hang around, since it is a little bit small, but if you've got places to be and dinner to head off to, that's understandable as well. What do you think, Ollie?
Oh yeah, we can stay on for a few more minutes if anyone wants to hang out. Otherwise, yeah,
Or
good night
any
from all of us. Thank
questions as
you.
well. Yeah,
Official tasting over.
done.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
No worries. Yeah.
Yeah.